Hey guys, welcome to Wood.Work.LIFE. Computers, I don't know anymore. I've done a few of these systems and you guys really like them, so I'm gonna keep doing them because they're a lot of fun for me. I love working with computers and with wood. This build is part of a sponsorship with Oris Gigabyte. It's actually more of a commission for a fellow YouTuber, celebrity, whatever you want to call him. And hopefully he enjoys this once it's finally delivered. If you're watching this before he's seen it, it's gonna be a little blurred throughout the video, but hopefully you get the idea. I named this build the Foundry after some suggestions from some of my friends on Instagram. If you follow me over there, you may have seen some of the elements of this build from my stories. But enough of the setup, let's do this.
I started with breaking down these beautiful walnut slabs with my track saw. And I finally gave up my old Delta planer. I upgraded to a new DeWalt triple blade planer, which not only made things a lot faster, but it also had way better dust collection, which meant I didn't have to clean up my whole shop afterwards, which was nice. After getting all the slabs to a consistent 3/4 inch thickness, I laid them out to see which slabs really worked best and gave me a nice reveal. After determining the layout, I carefully fit them into some melamine forms that I'd lined with packing tape as well as release agent. This is my first ever epoxy pour, and I used TotalBoat's 2-part resin, which I carefully poured in 1/4 inch layers. I mixed in a mica gold cosmetic metal flake to get the gold effect. I'll link to that down below in the description.
Saved me from my shelf.
After the epoxy cured, I carefully released it from its forms. This was made a lot easier with the release agent and the fact that I was way over careful since this is my first pour. After watching all of the different ways to prepare an epoxy slab, with the literally millions of epoxy tables out there, I at least think I came up with an interesting way to flatten them. I started with a power planer, then moved on to a belt sander just to smooth out the power planer marks, popped the grain with a little bit of mineral spirits, and then finally finished up with a buffing to 400 grit with an orbital sander. To add minimal coloring to the panel and just let the grain pop, I used TotalBoat's gloss varnish and just watered it down a little bit to give it a little more of a matte finish. With the finish applied and the epoxy dried, now came the terrifying part of cutting this thing down to size. This project came with a lot of firsts. This was my first time actually using a CNC. Fortunately, with the Inventable X-carve, you can use the Easel software, which is super easy. I was actually able to just import JPEG images and auto traces them for you. If you don't have access to a CNC, you can still use the Easel software. I'll link to that down in the description. I'll also include a link from Inventables on where you can actually access an X-carve if you don't have one in your shop. As terrifying as all that may have been, this thing turned out phenomenal.
All right, so that pretty much wraps it up from the woodworking perspective. From here on out, it's just gonna be building the computer. And I wanted to build a computer that was just as epic as the woodworking side of this with that gold Inlay river table. So I used AMD's second generation Threadripper, the 2990WX. It's a 32 core, 64 thread processor, so just a beast. It's got 32 gigs of Aorus's RGB memory at 3200 megahertz, which is gonna be really fast with the Ryzen platform. In the graphics department, it's got the VEGA 64, again from Gigabyte, and it's all sitting on the X399 Extreme platform, which I've also added a little bit of extra secret sauce to, like a full cover water block from EK Water Blocks and some gold accents. I'm calling it the Gold Edition. So I think it really fits with the epicness of this to go into another epic build montage of this system. So you get the idea, right? An epic wooden golden PC. I think it turned out pretty cool. But one thing I left out in the final build montage is I made a custom coolant fluid with mica powder, glycerin, distilled water, and just a little bit of dish soap. The one thing I left out in the video is I actually had to do a little bit of chemistry and use a chelator to keep the silver and titanium oxide from the mica powder in suspense so it wouldn't accumulate on the radiator. I used a automotive radiator cleaner that had sodium sulfate, nothing else, no acids or anything like that. I want to make sure it doesn't break down the PETG or the butyl in any of the seals. So that's a tip there. I'll link to that one down below that I used. This is more of a show fluid. It's not something you want to use in your system long term. You'll need to change it out as it kind of, builds up over time and clean out the system. But the system's beautiful and that's what it's for. Anyways, if you like this build and builds like this and want to see more, be sure you hit that like button, get subscribed, and click that little bell icon so that YouTube knows you want to see more than just daily vloggers in your feed. I'll leave you with a far too epic montage of the finished product, but remember to keep your tools sharp and to keep your mind sharper. Have a good one, and I'll see you soon.